2 years after Ahsoka aired, the question still haunts Star Wars fans everywhere. Was it actually great, or did we just want it to be? When it premiered, it felt like a love letter to Rebels fans. The return of Sabine Wren, Hera Syndulla, and even Hayden Christensen's Anakin hit every nostalgic note perfectly. It looked beautiful, sounded epic, and promised something profound. But over time, that promise started to feel uncertain. The duels were mesmerizing, the cinematography was stunning, and the world building felt alive again. But beneath all that beauty was hesitation, a story unsure whether it wanted to be an ending or a beginning. It asked questions it never answered, built tension it never resolved, and hinted at greatness it never claimed. Some fans call it misunderstood, others call it empty spectacle. And honestly, both might be right, because Ahsoka wasn't bad, it was incomplete. It gave us pieces of brilliance wrapped in pacing that moved like a meditation, and depending on who you ask, that's either art or apathy. Revisiting it now, the show feels like a mirror, reflecting both what we love about Star Wars and what we've lost trying to chase that feeling. It's beautiful, flawed, patient, and frustrating. Everything Star Wars has always been. In this video, we're revisiting Ahsoka Season 1 2 years later to finally ask the question no one seems to agree on. Was it truly one of Star Wars' boldest live-action stories? Or just a nostalgia-fueled illusion that looked like greatness from a distance? When Ahsoka premiered in 2023, it felt like a dream come true for fans of Rebels. Seeing Sabine Wren, Hera Syndulla, and Chopper finally step out of animation and into live action wasn't just exciting, it was surreal. It was the first time Dave Filoni's animated universe collided directly with the cinematic one, bridging 2 generations of Star Wars storytelling. It wasn't about nostalgia yet, it was about possibility. Rosario Dawson's Ahsoka carried the weight of that dream. Her stoicism, the calm precision in her movements, and her silent grief made the character feel more mythic than ever. The show framed her as a wandering Ronin, a Jedi who had outlived the war and outgrown the Order. The premiere alone promised something deeper, Star Wars finally maturing with its audience, focusing less on space battles and more on legacy and purpose. Then came the returns, Sabine, defiant as ever, painting her armour in her Lothal Tower like the galaxy hadn't moved on. Hera, the general who traded rebellion for responsibility. Huyang, the ancient droid who once trained generations of Jedi now serving as their caretaker of history. The show pulled every thread from Rebels and tied it together with reverence. For fans who grew up with those characters, it felt like a reward 10 years in the making. The tone was slow, deliberate, even meditative. The first episodes felt like The Mandalorian had wandered into a samurai film. Long pauses, quiet music, and the weight of unspoken regret gave the story a spiritual edge that Star Wars hadn't explored in years. The lightsaber duels weren't flashy, they were emotional chess matches, where every swing carried personal history. And yet, for all its beauty, the show was haunted by its own ambition. Filoni wasn't just reviving Ahsoka, he was reviving an entire era. The first time Thrawn's name was mentioned, it wasn't fan service, it was a promise of scale, a reminder that Star Wars could still feel vast, mysterious, and dangerous again. That sense of mystery peaked when Ahsoka entered the world between worlds, a sequence so breathtaking, it felt like the Force itself had come alive. Seeing Hayden Christensen as Anakin again was electric. Not as the angry Sith of Mustafar, but as a teacher, testing his former Padawan in visions that blurred the line between life and memory. The duel between them wasn't nostalgia, it was closure, and perhaps the most emotionally mature moment Disney Star Wars had ever given us. It reminded us that Ahsoka's story wasn't about heroism, it was about healing. At its best, Ahsoka felt like a spiritual sequel to everything Filoni had ever touched. The Clone Wars, Rebels, Mandalorian, all leading here. It was a culmination of themes about mentorship, failure, and legacy. It wasn't just telling a story, it was asking what happens to those who survive everyone else's ending. But 2 years later, the question lingers. Did Ahsoka fulfill that promise? Or did it just borrow the magic of its predecessors? Because the difference between tribute and dependence is subtle, and Ahsoka walked that line every episode. For every breathtaking moment, there's a quiet question underneath. Did the show stand on its own, or was it just reminding us of a time when Star Wars did? The biggest debate around Ahsoka isn't whether it looked good, it's whether it meant anything new. Because 2 years later, it's hard to tell where the emotion ended and the nostalgia began. On one hand, the series gave us moments that felt truly cinematic. The map sequences, the hyperspace jump through the Purrgil, the haunting stillness of Peridea. But on the other, it recycled emotional beats we've seen before, only this time with older faces and better lighting. Take Sabine's arc, for example. Her decision to become Ahsoka's apprentice should have been the emotional core of the series. Instead, it felt rushed, as if the writers knew it had to happen but didn't know why it should. Her connection to the Force was symbolic, not developed. And when she finally uses it in the finale, it feels like payoff without setup. Like the Force itself gave her powers out of convenience rather than growth. Even Ahsoka's evolution felt fragmented. Her transition from detached mentor to compassionate leader should have hit harder. The World Between Worlds episode hinted at a breakthrough, but afterward, the show barely explored what that revelation meant. She smiles more, fights better, and seems lighter. But the emotional weight behind that change disappears as fast as it appears. It's not that the series lacked meaning, it's that it had too many ideas competing for attention. Baylan Skoll's philosophical musings about ending the cycle of Jedi and Sith could have anchored an entire season by themselves. But the show treated him like a subplot, a side note in a story too distracted by setup. And when Ray Stevenson passed away, his haunting performance became both a gift and a tragedy, the best character in the show left unfinished. Meanwhile, Thrawn's long-awaited return was more subtle than anyone expected. Lars Mikkelsen nailed the calm menace, but the writing never gave him a moment to dominate. He observes, he plans, he retreats. His brilliance is implied rather than shown, and for a villain 2 decades in the making, that restraint left many fans conflicted. Some saw it as clever patience, others as lost opportunity. Hera's storyline too felt strangely underdeveloped. Her role as both general and mother could have added a layer of maturity to the show's themes of legacy. Instead, she spends most of the series waiting for permission to act. For a character who once led fleets, it's a strangely passive portrayal. It's as if the show couldn't decide whether she was a lead or a cameo. And that's the irony. Ahsoka wanted to feel epic, but it was structured like a prologue. Every episode hinted at something greater, a war beyond the stars, a prophecy unfolding. But nothing truly landed. It felt like Star Wars was saving its best ideas for a movie instead of committing to the one already on screen. The visuals were stunning, the choreography impeccable, but the pacing was glacial. Whole scenes played like beautiful paintings that forgot they were part of a moving story. By the finale, it wasn't excitement that fans felt, it was confusion mixed with admiration. Because Ahsoka wasn't bad, it was incomplete. It was a masterclass in atmosphere with a C- in storytelling. And that's why, even 2 years later, it's so divisive. It's not whether people loved it, it's that no one's sure why they did. Looking back now, Ahsoka feels like a time capsule. A moment where Star Wars tried to honour everything it once was, while struggling to define what it wanted to become. 2 years later, its strengths shine even brighter. But so do its cracks. It's a show caught between eras, nostalgia for the old and hesitation for the new. Its greatest achievement was tone. Ahsoka didn't feel like any other Disney Star Wars project. It felt contemplative, melancholic, even spiritual. It understood silence. It trusted stillness. It reminded viewers that Star Wars isn't just about blasters and dogfights. It's about myth, memory, and consequence. Every frame looked like it was painted by someone who actually cared. But tone can't carry forever. The emotional restraint that once felt elegant now feels hollow when revisited. The series ends with Ahsoka stranded on Peridea, gazing into the fog with Sabine by her side. It's haunting, yes, but also incomplete. That ambiguity worked in 2023 when fans assumed answers were coming soon. 2 years later, it feels more like abandonment. Baylan Skoll's ending's even more tragic now. His silhouette atop that ancient statue, facing the unknown, what once symbolized destiny, now reads as lost potential. It's the perfect metaphor for the series itself, a vision of greatness that stopped just short of achieving it. And yet something about Ahsoka still lingers. Maybe it's the music, maybe it's the quiet confidence in Dawson's performance, or maybe it's the way the show dared to be patient in an age of constant spectacle. Even if it didn't land perfectly, it reminded us that Star Wars could still take its time, breathe, and let moments speak without dialogue.
Thank you for watching. Be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that share button. My main channel is Critical Analysis Hub, where I post Star Wars content about the movies. My secondary channel is Critical Analysis Hub Plus, where I focus on the shows of Star Wars. And my third channel is Critical Analysis Hub XP, where I post comic books. Be sure to take a moment and check them out. Thanks, and may the Force be with you.